My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. If you're gonna do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
Plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the raspy dispatcher. You know, going in, looking up at 2024 being here, which feels like so quickly. I'm just super excited for what we have coming next year for the Raspy Dispatcher. We'll be out at the Denise Amber Lee Foundation Conference in Knoxville, Tennessee at the end of January. So if you happen to be at that conference, stop by our booth, check us out. And if you haven't heard of that conference, don't know what the heck I'm talking about, definitely head over to their website. This will be the second year they're putting this conference together, and it is certainly going to be wonderful. Lots of amazing topics and information covered. Amazing folks at the expo hall showing all these awesome products for dispatchers, and it's going to be a great time. So definitely, if that's something you're interested in, check that out. We'll be out there selling shirts, stickers, letting folks know about the resources we have available. So definitely check that out. So for today's episode, my guest has been dispatching for 28 years. He's currently a communication supervisor, but will be retiring in about a week. So it is so awesome that we're going to be grabbing her for this talk today to get all their experience and all the information they've learned over their career. My guest today, Patricia. Hi, Patricia.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. I told you, just got a fresh cut. You know, we bonded on our email exchange. We both had to work out our haircut to make this happen. So, but you know, as dispatchers, we're always flexible and ready to make a schedule change. So,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you being on. Oh, puppies! You got puppies? Don't be. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have one dog. He's kind of a mutt. He looks more like a Westie, but he's got a little Chihuahua in him.
What's their name?
His name is Harley.
Oh, Harley. Oh,
Yeah.
so cute. Adorable. My pup's name is Sandy. She's a bit of a mutt too. We went to Hawaii, and my partner's from there, and we were getting DoorDash, and our delivery guy was like, "Oh, that's a poodle." And we were like, "No, not a poodle." Like, where do you even see that? And then we did our little DNA thing because, you know, my partner loves that stuff. And she's like 90% poodle. And I was like, this dog does not look like a poodle to me. I don't know but that's the only person, this random person in Hawaii. So shout out to you, sir. Was able to pinpoint my dog's genetics.
Maybe he works for Ancestry.com or something.
I know, right? It was all a plot twist to get us to buy, you know? Well, tell us a little bit about how you got into public safety and what that journey looked like for you.
Well, I was pretty young when I started. My uncle actually was a fire chief for a small volunteer fire department in a little town called Spiceland.
And I like it.
Yeah, like less than 1,000 people there. He was always joking with me, telling me, "Hey, I really think you need to be a dispatcher." And I'm like, "I don't think I could do that. You know, I don't want to hear a bunch of people listening to me talk and, you know, all that kind of stuff." And here I am 8 years later.
What was that application process like for you? Do you think it was quick? You got in there compared to what you know it is like today, or?
Well, it's a lot different. Back then, if you knew somebody, it was like, "Hey, why don't you come work up here?" I mean, I put an application in, but I literally started the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a crazy turnaround.
It was. We did a lot of old school training where you had to read the paper maps and and, you know, fictitious calls. And we had to go into Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, which is totally different than what we do now.
Yeah.
We actually had to stay there and go through a APCO dispatch class, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And they also made us do a first responders class. Not that we were ever going to go on the scene, but we needed to know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And honestly, cool. Yeah. Like I think that would be something I would love to be able to do, now. How interesting. So cool.
Yeah, like training now is a lot different. I've been a training officer, and I always feel like you need to know both sides of the radio. So we always have our new trainees go with the fire department for a little bit. We also have them go with I can't talk EMS and also with the police department, so they can hear what we sound like and what they go through on calls and things.
Yeah. And that is something that is so helpful, I would say. And if it's something your department isn't doing, definitely find a way to make it happen, because one thing that goes a long way is giving each other grace and understanding of what it looks like, because we could be like, I just told you that. But it's like they're out there on a traffic stop, cars are flying by, there's witnesses, like all these things like that are happening around them that they have to be aware of. And that we don't have that reality in our centers. So definitely sending folks out into the field, not to inspire them to leave us, but to give them just a glimpse of what it looks like when they're trying to receive the information we're providing.
Well, yeah, it's a lot different, when officers out on a traffic stop and, they've got someone yelling at them and, cars going by, we need to be a little bit more patient and gracious with them. Hey, they're going through stuff too. It's not just us.
Seriously. So what would you say it was like for you in the beginning? Your family tells you like, you should really do this. You're like, I don't know. And then you end up doing it. What was that like for you in the beginning?
I was pretty nervous, because we live in a small community, and I thought, all these people are listening, and what if I mess up? And, the worst thing is I thought, what if it's someone I know that's calling 911?
Yeah.
I don't want to say, hey, it's me.
Right? Oh,
so that was a little bit challenging because I've taken calls on family members and, friends and things like that. But you get used to it and you help them just the same as you do everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, that is one big reality that a lot of folks have to deal with, especially if they're living in the communities they're serving, right? It's just this idea of potentially answering a call from your people. And it's and it is something like obviously you're trained for it. You try to get through it. If you're safely able to pass it off, that's an option too. But the reality is you got to do the job for everyone that calls in, no matter your relationship to them or, your feelings about it. You just got to fall back on that training and go sometimes. Well, do you remember any of your calls for service or early calls or experiences in this line of work?
Oh, I could tell you a really funny story.
Oh, we love those.
I took a call about a person who was sitting in a park and looking at things he shouldn't have been doing. And I gave the description of the car and everything else. And not even think about it. I was like, the located hold and advise authority and blah, blah, blah. I was mortified.
They're like, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. Yes, very embarrassing.
And
I thought, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Hey, you still made it 28 years. Look at that. Yeah. But it's so true. Like, sometimes we just say some wild stuff over the radio and not intentionally. Sometimes you're just going, and things slip out. Or even the worst, I think, is writing something like writing shit instead of shirt in a call. I had a friend, a coworker, who wrote pimp bomb instead of pipe bomb. It is just the keyboard that'll betray you sometimes, you know? You're trying to get it in fast, trying to do the thing, and it lives there forever. That's the worst part about it.
Yes.
It's not like you can go back and edit, or even if you can like change it a little bit, it's still stamped in there in some way, shape, or form, the original text, you know?
Yes.
So for those who are listening, we've all done it. You know, pipe bombs turn into pimp bombs, and you know, shirts to shits, and it's just one of those things. You gotta roll with the punches in this line of work.
Absolutely.
Speaking of rolling with the punches, it's always easier to do that in a team environment, which is definitely what I would say we rely on a bit between our coworkers in our centers and our units in the field. Why is teamwork in the center so important?
Well, obviously, I mean, if you take a call on someone you know, or it's a serious situation, the people that you work with need to be able to step in and help, or, you know, get someone started to the call. Also, on the other side of the radio, they can tell the inflection from your voice, how serious the call is. You know, my coworkers, they know that if I'm getting a little loud, that there's something going on.
Yeah.
Or if I'm like yelling at my partner, hey, you're going to have to get them started.
Yeah.
Teamwork is essential. We have to be there for one another. And
It's so true. Like talking about inflection in our voices and even in our units, like we know when something's changing. You know what I mean? Like you just get the sixth sense about it. You know how people normally talk versus when they're, you know, on a light jog with an individual and they're trying to put things out. Having that ear for those little nuances goes a long way in this line of work for sure.
yes. Yeah, teamwork is definitely an essential part of being a dispatcher.
What are some tips you would give folks who are trying to establish that teamwork in their centers? I know historically our centers sometimes can be a little, you know, a little tough to get in there and create some culture change, and it's definitely something that we're trying to continually do in this line of work. And I know supervisors have the toughest job. A, you get blamed the most, and B, you are responsible for creating that change or having to intentionally implement it, which is tough.
Yes.
So what advice would you give from your career to kind of help people do that, create that teamwork and create a positive environment in our centers?
I would say that, you know, you need to definitely ask your coworkers for help if you need it. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't think that if they are helping you, that they're trying to take over. You know, maybe they know that you haven't had that type of call before. Don't think that you're a one-man show. We all need each other. I would say that, you know, as far as, you know, people not getting along and things like that, they should leave the attitude at the door, not bring it in. We're all there to help our communities, and, you know, it's not necessary to bring all that in.
And it really isn't, you know, like it's so easier said than done, right? But just
Well, believe me, I know.
right? But honestly, it's something I say, I think quite often is like the job is hard enough.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like the job is hard enough. We're naturally going to make mistakes as people doing this job.
Yes.
So I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, you know, we get out of training, right? We go through this training process where we're constantly being critiqued, constantly being told what we missed in a call. And then we get out there into the big world as a grown-up dispatcher and all of a sudden it's like, my calls are perfect. But the reality is, if someone just sat there and listened to all of our calls, there's always feedback. Like there's never a call you take that you did 100%, like no change, wouldn't have asked a question differently, or could have asked a question in a different way. There's always something we could have done better in a call. So yeah.
I think a big thing is you should never stop learning. You know, if you feel like you know it all, then you probably don't know half as much as you think you do.
It's so true. It's
Training's
so
very
true.
important.
Yes. And like we can learn from each other so much more than just like dogging each other out. And of course, we should be providing feedback when it's officer safety related and things of that nature, things where we're not doing our job in the sense that we're going to be harming people. But when it comes down to like little things like, I don't know, an abbreviation or, things like that, like let's just let some things slide every once in a while.
Yeah, sometimes, we wear our emotions on our shirts, our sleeves, and you're like, "Ugh, I cannot believe they're criticizing the way I did that. What do they think they would have done better?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
we,
my
we take it
God.
a little too personally.
Yeah, seriously. And I mean, as a supervisor, you get the fun task of correcting folks and critiquing them and coaching them. How do you think you have found that part of your job? Like what has worked best for you as far as creating a environment where you can provide that feedback and it's received well?
Well, when we have our downtime, I would, say, all right, let's talk about this call. Tell me what you think you did positive. Tell me what you think you did negative, and what can we do to make you think that the call was more positive? And, I make them tell me what they think they did right or wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
find that that's the best way to do it. That way you're not starting off, well, you did this wrong, because nobody
Mm.
likes that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean it provides it gives them ownership in the thing, right? And
Yes,
it gives you a perspective of how they viewed the call, you know.
absolutely.
Hindsight is what always 2020, isn't that the big saying,
Yes.
and it's like if you're looking at my call, after and you don't have all the endorphins and the anxiety and all the blood rushing through your body while you're taking the call, it's definitely easy to really critique it. Um, but I also think it's important, from a mental health and a wellness aspect as well, to touch base on how they feel that call went,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. We've had, callers that, they've ended their lives when we've been on the phone with them.
Yeah.
And, it's essential that you check on your, you know, coworkers. And even if it's after hours, hey, you doing all
Mm.
right? I know that call can't talk today. That call was hard for you.
Yeah.
Um, most of us need to be a little bit more caring and compassionate towards our coworkers instead of just the people that call in.
Isn't that such a funny thing? And I
Mhm.
think it's something I've heard and witnessed often is like we do this job where our job is to understand and be there for complete strangers and give people grace when they're calling 911 without an emergency.
Yeah.
That's kind of our deal. But we struggle with giving those same things to ourselves and to our coworkers who are helping us do this job and are dealing with the same uphill battles that we're dealing with. I think it's a
Mhm.
lot harder for us to do that for ourselves and each other than for our citizens.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate because we need each other.
Oh my gosh, 1000%, 1000%. And in regards to kind of wellness and peer support and things like that in our centers, what has that growth or change to look like for you witnessing that over the past 28 years? Have you noticed that huge shift in like, yeah, it's okay not to be okay type of sentiment?
I would say kind of half. I mean,
Mm.
there is some serious calls that I will say that, like, the officers and firemen and EMS, they include us on a debriefing, but we've been so short staffed that
Mm.
a lot of times we don't even get to participate in that. And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need that also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? If you can't get it, like, bring it to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, find ways to be creative because I know we all know listening to this in this line of work that staffing in our centers is rough. I'm a weirdo who has dodged the low staffing in each center that I have worked in. I left my center and then they went to very low staffing, dodged that, went to my new center, and I was part of the pieces to help bring their staffing up. So like we're chilling right now.
That's great.
Right? But I know that that is not the case in a lot of our centers. And so when we talk about making modifications and extending people's training till they really get it and not just throwing them into the deep end, we're speaking from a place of privilege in that sense. Like, if you could do this, like, let's do this, let's think about how we can do this. But the reality is, yeah, man, we're understaffed, we're overworked, we're here mandated on our days off, and we need more dispatchers. Who would have thought?
Yeah, our center, we usually have 2 people working. They're working on getting 3, but funding and people actually wanting to do this profession anymore. People just don't realize what it entails.
Right. And I know, like, departments in general, especially law enforcement, I mean, there's a shortage of officers on the street, now. And I know that probably, I'm assuming, at a department, Grace, when they're looking, they're like, we need officers, and they're like, we also need dispatchers, and it's like, you gotta be putting the same energy into both. It's only gonna help you as a department overall if we beef up that staffing in both, because your dispatchers are going a little crazy if we're not getting staffing in.
Well, yeah, it brings morale down, and you're tired and burn out.
Yeah. Burnout is such a real thing. It's such a real thing.
Absolutely.
And have you found ways in your career and your time doing this? You're retiring in a week or so, I believe we said, next Friday. Getting out of there, and it's so wonderful that to be able to do that, right? To go do the next thing, whatever that is. If it's keeping your PJs on for 24 hours or, moving into another job or role after completing your service in this line of work. It's so awesome. And have you found any tricks or ways to really manage that burnout or combat it?
I found that if I take a vacation like about every 3 months and go to the beach and just unwind, that was the best thing for me. Also, on my days off, I would spend time with my grandkids and, just don't think about work all the time.
Yeah. It's easy to get in that cycle, where we're just constantly thinking about work, letting our work email hit our phones just because we want to know the deets of what's happening when we're not there. Unplugging is so valuable in this line of work.
It is. You go out in the public and people are like, oh, what about this call? What about that? Hey, I wasn't working, okay? And even if I was, I'm not going to talk to you about it.
Like, and now you're going to be like, I don't even work there no more. Like, don't even ask me.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to listen to your own scanner,
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. What have you found to be maybe the most rewarding way of training a new dispatcher? I know we have a lot of different methods and ways of training, that like radio ear and things of that nature. That's very unique to our line of work. What would you say you've experienced, like, kind of the best way to, especially with an agency that's running with 2, get them into the swing of how you guys are dispatching?
We start off with a little bit of what we call book training, where they're just working on computer stuff, but they're in our dispatch center, so they're listening to what's going on. They do that for a little while, and then they come over and they sit with us and they listen, and we show them how to do things. I also tell them to listen to the scanner app. I mean, develop that ear, and if you've got time to write down what the officer said, what the dispatcher said, that gets you in the mode of, hey, maybe I need to talk like that. And like I said earlier, riding with people is a good way for them to understand things also. It's a very hard job to learn, I think.
It really is. It's like joining it's like trying to be a Marine. Like it's just this real extreme training where you're constantly being pushed to this limit that
Yes.
your body emotionally is not prepared for, and it's just like without the physical aspect of everything that our Marines have to deal with. But like, I remember going through, because we did like a little 8-week academy, and then we did phone training, and then once you got solo on phones, they let you like breathe and just do the job for a little bit, which shout out to you, SAC PD, because going through training is so tough. You need some time to just kind of like, let me just do this.
Mhm.
Then once you were fully trained as a call taker, they put you through like a 2-week radio academy, and then you went and did radio training
Okay.
for the rest of the time, which was amazing. But that radio training, let me tell you, there was a few times I was like, I need a minute. And I was like, go to the back room and cry, because, you just have to keep typing. You just have
Yes.
to keep pushing through. And it's not like you get 10 calls and they're like, okay, you're full. Like, no.
You got 10 more waiting on you.
Right? In 10 minutes, you're going to have another 5 added. And like, my
Mhm.
city was wild. So I remember times where I had like 6 high priority, like, we need to go now, like pending at the same time, same sector.
Wow.
And all you do is be like, Sergeant, copy the vending call. And you have no one to send. I mean, it's just like, yeah, copy. And you're just like freaking out, because when you have, I don't know if you can relate to this, but when you have high priorities on the board and you've done all the things you can do, and now you have to just wait,
Yeah.
you know?
Very nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And especially with like, and if it's a violent call, our call takers are probably sitting on the phone with them for as
Mhm.
long as they can keep them on the phone, right? And
Yes.
they're talking to this person who's going through this thing, and you're like, okay, I need to send someone. There's no one to send, and you're like, oh, that anxiety.
Yeah. I guess Harley wants to join again.
I know. Harley is out here like, let's go, mom. Sandy's not much of a talker. I just got to hear her little feet going around outside the hallway. I think I've heard that dog bark like 6 times in my life. She's very quiet. She's not a dispatcher, in her former life.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Harley was.
Yeah, in his past life.
Oh my gosh. Do you have any immediate plans for your retirement? Do you like,
I
are you
think I'm
gonna
gonna
just
take a little time off, and I'm gonna have like a normal job, Monday through Friday, no evenings, no weekends, no holidays. So I'm
my
not
God.
really gonna know how to act.
Oh my, yeah, I know. You're just gonna show up for work on Christmas. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, what are you doing here? Like, what do you mean we're not working today?
Yeah, gonna be a
They're gonna be
big
like,
change.
Patricia's here again. It's after hours. I don't know what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Gosh,
gonna be
that's
good.
so cool. That's so cool. Well, what advice would you give someone who is considering a career in dispatch after all your years of wisdom?
I would say be patient with yourself.
Mm.
Be patient with your trainers. Give yourself grace. Yeah. It's a lot to take in all at once, and I don't want to sound cold-hearted, but don't take it so personal when people are critiquing you.
Yes, facts. It's so true. You gotta let things roll off your back, whether it's a citizen or your supervisor,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Patricia, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut
How
you
long
off.
have you been dispatching?
I have been dispatching 5 going on 6 years.
That's
And
awesome.
let me tell you, time flies. Let me like just I
Mhm.
got, and the only reason I realized the time bump was because at my agency we get, I guess, kind of a longevity benefit. Once you
Oh,
hit a
wow.
certain number of years, the time off accrued increases. So I noticed my time off accrued increase. I was like, oh, I must have hit it's like 5 to 9 or something like that is the next stop. I was like, oh, look at that. I'm accruing more time off.
That's awesome.
The small joys of working in the public sector.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's definitely been a journey. I mean, obviously we're doing all this lovely stuff at the Raspy Dispatcher, hoping to get more folks in the door. But yeah, it's been a ride, that's for sure.
I bet. I think that being a dispatcher is very rewarding. It doesn't necessarily seem like it because we're kind of the unsung heroes, but we do make a difference.
Yeah, daily with folks we'll never talk to again, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well, Patricia, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. Congratulations on your retirement, heading into your next journey. It's going to be a blast, I am sure. But don't worry, there's always a dispatch job available if you want to, pull a Michael Jordan and come out of retirement for a little bit,
Yeah, I put a lot of time into all that education and training, so.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'll be right back with you, okay?
Okay, thanks.
All right, everybody. That was another amazing episode of our podcast, Let's Talk Dispatch. Patricia, seriously, congratulations on heading into retirement. 28 years is no joke in this line of work. So we do appreciate, and I know the folks you work with directly appreciate everything you've done for them. And I'm sure they'll reach out even after you're gone for advice and feedback. And all the folks listening today truly appreciate all the gems you've provided them during this episode. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. If you're interested in joining as a guest on the podcast, just head to theraspydispatcher.com. You can submit a story or you can grab a slot to come join me for a chat. Until next time, everybody, stay raspy. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or maybe even submitting your own story, you can do all that and more at theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time, stay raspy.